Hello and welcome to day 14 of the Halloween Craft Countdown from Craft with Sarah. This video we are using patterned HTV. So I have a range of amazing Halloween patterned HTV which I will be making treat bags with. So I'll show you how to design your own bags with a name across them in Cricut Design Space that use two different types of patterned HTV. I'll also share my best tips for making sure that your patterns can be clearly seen on your designs, and you'll be able to see some of my earlier attempts which didn't quite work out so well to see where I went wrong so that you don't make those same mistakes. Let's take a closer look at the patterned HTV. Here are some of the patterned vinyls that I bought to do this video with, and these are all from gmcrafts.co.uk, which is a UK vinyl website. There are other places online you can get them if you are outside of the UK, but I've used this website a few times now and their delivery is always super quick and their products are really good quality. So I got a range of different designs and all of these are heat transfer vinyl, but for most, if not all of the patterns, they did also have them in adhesive vinyl as well. So if you're doing a tumbler or decorating a notebook or anything where adhesive vinyl would be better, then you should be able to get the same patterns for that. And all of the design tips I'll go through in this video work for the heat transfer vinyl and adhesive vinyl. So how your heat transfer vinyl will work when it's patterned will vary a bit based on the brand that you have bought. So it's really important that you check the manufacturer's website or the packaging to see how to use it. So this one here, it comes, you can actually see because I've still got the label on, but there's a web address here which you can go to. I'll drop a link to it in the description, where it tells you all of the cut settings you need for each type of machine. So if you're on a Cricut or a Silhouette or a Scan and Cut, and it also tells you how to use the material and the press settings. So for this particular heat transfer vinyl, you don't need to mirror your designs when you're making it. That again may vary based on your vinyl, so double check. But how this works instead is it's actually kind of more like using adhesive vinyl. So you cut your design just on the front, you don't need to mirror it, just do it like normal. And then all the vinyl comes with this sticky sheet, so you can cut it to size, and it's basically transfer tape, but a heat-proof version. So once we've cut the design, we'll cut a bit of this, stick it over the top to put it on here. So our little pumpkins that we'll cut out will go onto here, and then we'll layer up all the different colours and then press it onto the treat bags. But before we get to that, we need to make our design. So let's jump into Cricut Design Space and get crafting. Let's create the design to go on the front of the treat bag. First, I'm going to add my name. So I'll go into text and then just type out my name here. By default, it will do this in the Cricut Sans font, but I want to change it. Make it big so you can see, and then double click in there and select the text with my cursor and go into this fonts drop down. I'm going to click the Cricut link up here to just show the Cricut Access font so that you'll be able to get the same font as me. Now, when you're doing fonts with patterned vinyl, it's really important that you choose a thick font because we need to be able to actually see that pattern in the shapes of the letters. If I chose something like this, which is a really thin font, you're not going to be able to see the pictures in that vinyl because there's just not enough room. So it's going to look a little bit messy and not clear, and it just won't look as good. Instead, we want a thick font. So I'm going to go in here and have a little look. This one here is called Beefcakes, and that is super thick. So that's the one I'm going to choose. That's going to let loads of my pattern show in these letters, which is ideal. I don't actually like how this A and the R are touching, so I want to separate them. I'll make it a bit smaller, and then at the top of the layers panel, press ungroup. And just keep your eye on this layers panel here to see what happens when I do that. So I press ungroup, and now you can see each letter is its own layer rather than being joined together like it was before. I'm going to click on the H, press Shift on my keyboard and choose the A. And then with the arrow keys on my keyboard, just shift them slightly so that they're not actually touching. I might do it once more. That's maybe a bit too far away. So let's use your mouse. And a trick, if you're using the mouse, you might find that it goes all out of position like this. Let's just undo that. But if you hold the shift key down whilst you're moving it with your mouse, then it stays horizontal and vertical a lot better. So you end up with a neater design. You can see I'm shifting it about a little bit, but it's still much easier to keep in position. I'm happy with that, so now I can press select all. And I need to join these letters together again so that they'll cut in the exact position I've got them here. To do that, go down to the bottom and press weld. Now they're all back as one layer, which means it's time to start on the next part of the design, which is adding the pumpkin in the back. I'll probably need to make this smaller to fit the pumpkin on, so there we go. And now I'm going to go into images and search for pumpkin. You can use any image that you want in the back of your name tag, but again, make sure you choose one that's got lots of space that will actually be cut out of the vinyl. So for example, you wouldn't want to choose this pumpkin here, this orangey one with the swirls, because all that's going to cut is these little outline edges and you won't be able to see the pattern on it. Something that shows a lot of colour, for example, this pumpkin would be a good one to choose, or this one down here that you can see, because all of that black will be filled in with your pattern vinyl. I'm going to choose this one at the top, which is actually a free image, so even if you don't have Cricut access, then you should be able to find this one. And this is hashtag M7867ACB. So if you type that into the search in Design Space with the hashtag at the front, you'll be able to find it. All right, let's go insert images. Here it is. And I'll make it a different color so it's easier for you to see what I'm doing. I want this to be bigger than my words so I can see some of it at the top and some at the bottom. And then let's put it underneath. So go arrange and center back. Then we can just play about with the positioning until we're happy with how it's looking. I want to make sure this pumpkin is exactly in the middle of my letters in the horizontal alignment. So let's go select all, align, and then center horizontally. I now think that pumpkin's a bit big. Oops, I've still got them both selected. Let's make that pumpkin a little bit smaller and do the same thing there. I'm also going to move it down a bit. This is all personal preference, so you can do it however you want to get the effect that you're looking for. I want to add an offset border around the edge of the letters and the pumpkin, and I'll show you why. When you're designing with heat transfer vinyl, especially patterned vinyl, and you're putting it onto something else, then one thing to bear in mind is, are you going to be able to see your design once it's pressed onto the background colour? And that's why we're going to be doing our design with an offset around it to make it easier to see. So this is the first version of the design that I made. So I've got my name in my purple pattern vinyl and then the pumpkin in the background. And it does look quite nice, but it is really, really difficult to read that name. And that's because it's kind of blending into the background color a bit. And also because of all of the different colors that are in the vinyl, it doesn't have a nice distinctive edge for the eye to be drawn to. So although this is cute, we can definitely make it better in Design Space. And here was my second attempt. So here I've put an offset around the pumpkin and around the letters, and all of that offset is done in black. Now I'm not sure it picks up on the camera, but looking at it in person, this green one is much easier to read than the brown one because of that offset. However, because I've used a black offset and there's a lot of black in the vinyl colours, it is still a little bit difficult to read. In fact, I'm looking at my camera screen now and I can't actually make it out that it says something. So in person you can read it quite well. It obviously says Sarah, and it looks much clearer than this one. But for the design we're going to make for this video where I show you how to press it, I'm going to change it up and try a white outline instead to see if that makes it even easier to read what it says. So it might be a little bit of trial and error before you get a design that you're really happy with, where you can read it well. And of course it does depend what colour you're putting it on. If I was putting this onto a white bag already, then you might find you don't need the outline because it would just show the white of the bag through here. But it's because I'm putting it on coloured material that we just need that extra little bit of definition. Let's see how to add the offset in Design Space to create the little white offset that we're going to be using. So to make the outline, we'll use the offset feature in Design Space. First, click on the name and then go into offset along the top and choose how big you want the offset to be. I think probably 0.15 would be a good amount for this. I could maybe even go smaller. Let's try 0.12. There, I'm happier with that one. So I'll press apply and that has created the offset. Then do the same on the image you have in the back. So offset, keep the same number, 0.12, and press apply. When you're working with heat transfer vinyl, you don't want to add too many layers of vinyl one on top of the other because it can get a little bit tricky to stick it all together, especially if you're doing loads of layers and it gets quite thick. So rather than having this whole pumpkin shape, which I have now, you can see it there, I'm actually going to cut out the shape of the offset words so that we won't need to cut that one. So let's turn that back on. And then I'm going to click this layer, press Shift on the keyboard and choose the orange pumpkin, and then down the bottom press Slice. And that will cut them out from each other. I've now got 4 different slice results, and for my 2 black ones, I actually want to either join them together again, which you can do by clicking both of them and then going into Weld. Sometimes that doesn't work, so you can see on this one it's put a weird line down the middle. So if that doesn't work, that's okay. Just delete those layers and we'll fix that in a moment. I've now got these layers here, the main pumpkin and then the bit it's cut out the middle. I want to keep the main pumpkin layer, which is this one, but delete the letters in the middle, so just hit delete on the keyboard. Now we need to add the offset layer again for the text. Remember, we had to delete it because it put that weird line through it. So just click the text again, go back into offset. Remember that same number, mine was 0.12, and press apply. And now we have that layer again. Finally, we want to join our offset of the pumpkin and the offset of the word together. Click one of your offset layers in the Layers panel, press Shift and choose the other one, and now they're both selected. Down the bottom, press Weld, and that will join them together. Now I actually don't like this little gap in the bottom of the S, so I'm going to get rid of that by clicking the layer and then go into Contour on the bottom right. Click into any spaces that you want to hide and then press the X, and now it's gone. You might also have instances like this in the S where you have some space that would probably look better if it was coloured in, but the contour button won't work on this because it's not actually its own contained shape. You see there's still the gap in the S. To hide things like this, go into Shapes and choose a square or a circle. I'll make it a bright colour just so you can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. I'm then going to resize, oops, selected the wrong layer. I'm going to resize this and position it where I want to hide that gap. So I'm sort of lining it up so it'll make this edge. Then choose the circle layer in the Layers panel, press Shift and choose the offset layer, and then weld those together. And now that gap has been removed. To see how this is looking, let's click it and go Arrange, Center Back. And now here are my 3 different layers which will cut. So to show you, I'm going to cut all of this, which I will actually do in white, but I'll leave it as black on the screen so it's easier to see. I've got my word here, my Sarah name, and this is going to be a purple vinyl. You don't actually need to change the colour, I'm just trying to make it a bit clearer. And then finally the pumpkin, and this is just going to cut these shapes here, so then we'll line it up and layer it on top. Let's resize it to fit the bag. Here's my little treat bag all ready to measure. So let's see, it is 5 inches across in total. I don't want my design to go too close to the edges because when it's full, it'll sort of push out, and I don't want it to have to stretch the vinyl at the corners. And then likewise, I don't want to put it too close to the top because when it's pulled, you see how that top all sort of gets pulled inwards. So where I want my design is this middle bit, where it's all going to kind of come out a bit when there's something in the bag, but it's not going to be pulled tight like it is at the top. So let's open this out again and have a look. I think about 4 inches, maybe a bit smaller actually. I might go 3.5, so that it is big enough that it'll look really obvious on the tote bag or the treat bag. It's not a tote bag, but not so big that it will touch the edges or be too close when the bag is full. Now I know my size, I can press select all in the top and then group these layers together. So press group at the top of the layers panel. And now use the width or the height box to change the size. Make sure the padlock icon is closed, as that means when you type in the size and press enter on the keyboard, the height will change in proportion too. So this is ready to cut out. Let's click make it and see what it's going to do. So I've got it's showing as black, but I will cut it from white heat transfer vinyl. And for this one, I need to mirror it. So let's press mirror. And that's flipped it around. Now for my patterned vinyl, I do not need to mirror it, but make sure you check your manufacturer's instructions because they're all different. So you might find that you do need to mirror your patterned heat transfer vinyl, but for mine, I do not. So I can leave it as this with only the black one mirrored, press continue and go and cut everything out. Again, check your manufacturer's instructions for the cut settings. For my vinyl that I'm using from gmcrafts.co.uk, I want to do it on the everyday iron-on setting with less pressure. When you're cutting patterned vinyl, it's important to put it on the mat the correct way. As I said at the beginning, you need to check your manufacturer to see if you need to mirror your design or not. And if you do, you'll probably be putting it upside down like this. But for this patterned HTV that I'm using, I do not need to mirror. So I need to stick it on my mat with the pattern facing upwards. And when you're sticking it on, make sure you've got your pattern in the correct direction. If I'd have put it on like this, for example, it means when I cut my name out, all of these pretty pictures will be facing the wrong way, and that would not look good. So I need to make sure that I'm doing it the correct way up. So let's stick this over. And I will use my brayer to stick it down a bit more before I put it in my Cricut, but I forgot to bring that into my filming room with me, so I don't have one. But it just goes on really nice and easily, and now I can cut out the design. Again, check your manufacturer to see what settings you need. I'm using a Cricut Maker, and it tells me on their website that for a Cricut Maker, I want to use the everyday iron-on setting with less pressure. So I'm going to go ahead, get everything cut out, and then I'll show you how to layer it together, and then we will iron it onto the treat bags. I've now cut out my name from here so I can take it off the mat. I'm going to turn it upside down and just gently pull the mat back so my vinyl stays nice and flat. And then because I don't want to waste any, I'm just going to look at where it's cut and just use a pair of scissors and cut around that so that I can then use the rest of the vinyl that hasn't been cut another time. So it's a little bit tricky to see. There we go, and then I've got all of that piece to use again. Next we need to weed the vinyl. And I'm going to start, so this is my weeding tool with a little point. There are lots of different brands available. This is the Cricut one. And I'm just going to pick up the little bits in the middle of the letters to start with. And I am very new to working with vinyl, so I am a slow weeder. But that was all those little pieces, and now I can do the outside. And a trick I sort of found is just to sort of dig your weeding tool through to pull a little corner off, and that makes it much easier to pick up the rest. And then this heat transfer vinyl brand does come off really easily. So I'm just going to peel off all that excess. There we are. So I've already done my other pieces. I've got my white offset and then the pumpkin. My white heat transfer vinyl, I did have to mirror that one. This is just standard heat transfer vinyl, so it comes on this sticky sheet anyway. But for the pattern vinyl, we're going to need to put it onto the transfer sheet. So let's do that. I'm going to move that one out of the way for now. And here's the transfer sheet which comes with the vinyl. I'm going to cut a little bit to size. You want to make sure you've got enough that it will completely cover your design, as it acts as a little bit of protection from your iron or your heat press. And then just move all these little bits of vinyl out the letters off. So just like before, I'm going to pick a corner up, and I just dropped it, but there's my corner again, and peel it back. And then underneath here, this is transparent, so you might not be able to see it, but it's sticky. I'm going to start with the word Sarah and just line this up roughly in the middle. It doesn't matter exactly, but you need to make sure you've got enough room for any other bits of vinyl you're putting on. Just going to rub it down. You could use a scraper tool or a brayer, but I found that actually this vinyl comes off really easily. So then I just need to turn it over and peel off the back of the vinyl that was attached. There we go. So that bit now we don't need. And then I can line this up. And there are lots of tricks available online for layering vinyl, but as this is quite simple, I think I can probably just do it by eye. So this is probably where I mess up. I'm going to put a bit of washi tape along the edge of this transfer tape, just to hold it flat on my surface so it'll be easier to line it up. And then one more bit on that top corner. If it curls, it's just that little bit harder to get it lined up perfectly. So there we go. Now I've got my transfer paper, and just going to line that up and then rub it over the pumpkin. Pick this up, pull my washi tape, and then peel back the one that was connected to the pumpkin, and make sure you take all the tape off too. And now this is ready to press. So here it is with my 2 layers of pattern vinyl, and then they're going to sit on the white one. Here's my bag. I'm going to put the design on, and I've put it on a Cricut heat pillow to protect my surface. As this is only little, I'm going to use a Cricut Easy Press. I've already preheated it, so to turn it on you just press the button, and I'm using the medium setting, so 2 little lights are on, and it's gone green to tell me that it is hot. I'm going to protect my work with some parchment paper, so when I'm ironing I'm going to put parchment paper on first. Here it is. Now for this particular GM Crafts patterned HTV, it says specifically not to use Teflon sheets but to use parchment paper instead. So that's why I've got this here. And to start with, I'm just going to iron my bag for about 10 seconds to flatten it out and get rid of any moisture that might be in there. Now these bags They feel a little bit plasticky, so I was worried they were going to melt, which is why I'm using the parchment paper. The two I've done so far did not melt, so hopefully this will be the same. All right, so I'm just going to move my mini press around the bag, get out any of that moisture that might be in there, just for a few seconds. And then I can start with the vinyl. Okay, we need to do our offset layer first, and this is the traditional vinyl, remember, where we cut it in reverse, we mirrored it. So I'm going to line this up where I want it to go. And when you're looking at it through the little bit of plastic, it should now be the right way. So I can see this is my S over this side, and then here is my H. So it should look the way you actually want it to appear. I might move it down a bit actually, because when you close the bag, it will probably screw up the top part, and then you wouldn't be able to see the design. So that's roughly straight. I'm happy with that. If you want to, you could put a bit of heat-proof tape on to hold it in place. Make sure you do use heat-proof tape, not normal tape, otherwise it'll melt. And then I'll put my parchment paper over it. And then I'm going to iron this just a little bit to get it to stick and come off of that plastic, but not completely iron it all the way on, because otherwise when I add the heat for the pattern vinyl, I don't want to damage the white. So here we go, my mini press, and I'm just going to move this about. You could do this with the larger Cricut presses or in a heat press, or even with your iron. You just need to make sure that you check the settings you need and the press time based on what you're actually going to be using. So there we go, I just went over that a few times. And now I'm going to peel this back. It is quite hot still. And again, with your particular vinyl, you need to check if you're supposed to peel that plastic back when it's hot or when it's cold, because again, that's something else that varies between different brands. But now I've got my pattern vinyl. Let's add that in, and it's quite easy to line up. Push that down. Oh, I am loving that. It's so much easier to read already. The white, that was a good colour choice for that offset layer. I'm happy. Alright, so let's iron this again. So this particular heat transfer vinyl you only need to do for 15 seconds. So nice quick press time. I'm adding a little bit of pressure when I'm pushing down and moving the mini press around. I'm going to make sure you get the whole design, including all of those edge letters, so you know, the end of the H and the S on the Sarah and the tip of that pumpkin. Here we go. Alright, let's give this a try. And this one is a warm peel, I believe. So I'm going to start peeling back now. It probably is still a little bit hot to be peeling back, so you can give it a little while to cool down. But that is actually coming off beautifully, and I can see it is stuck. If there were any bits that were still kind of stuck to that transfer paper, just put your parchment back over and iron that bit a bit longer. But that is perfect. And it is so much easier to read now. I'm just going to have a little look, find the other ones. So this was the first one I did without any offset, and this was the second with a black offset. And I can see, looking at my camera screen, how much more obvious this new one is. So definitely have a play about with your offsets and your colours until you get something that really works. But this white is looking awesome, so I would recommend, if you're using coloured materials with dark pattern vinyl, that white offset is really going to make your designs pop. I hope that you enjoyed this video on how to get the most out of your patterned HTV. Although I have used Halloween designs, you could use the same thing to make treat bags with any kind of patterned HTV. They'd make beautiful wedding favours, or even kind of maybe something instead of a party bag for kids' birthdays, and you could put all of their friends' names on. To make sure you don't miss out on any further videos in the Halloween Craft Countdown, go to craftwithsarah.com/Halloween 2021. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!